Why should you self-edit when you're going to hire a professional? Let's talk about self-editing, why and how to do it. I'll also show you how I self-edit my manuscripts before sending it to a professional editor. Hi, I'm Pooja Mohan. I'm an indie author, aka a self-published author, working to self-publish my 7th book, and welcome to my writing studio. Let me preface this by saying that everything I talk about in this video is based on my experience with the industry and my knowledge so far. There's a lot of information available on the internet, and I urge you to do your own research before you make a decision about what is the right option for you. Alright then, this is the 3rd video in a 5-part series on editing that I'm doing for authors who are considering self-publishing. If you've not checked out the earlier videos, make sure to check the description below. Why should you invest your time in self-editing when you'll be hiring someone and paying them your hard-earned money to do the same? Here is why. Because you want to get the most out of your money. I'm a little ashamed to admit that the first manuscript that I ever sent to a professional editor was not self-edited. There were so many mistakes that I could have easily fixed before turning in my manuscript and sending it to a professional editor. Here is the thing. Editors are trained to do what they do. If you give them a cleaner manuscript, they'll have more time to work on your manuscript and fix the things that you as a writer are not capable. Because you are a writer, you're not a trained editor. You're not going to catch the things that a professional editor is trained to catch and fix. So when you send a manuscript to an editor that is riddled with problems that you as a writer can catch, but you don't, your editor whom you're paying your precious money is going to spend their time fixing those problems and might not get the opportunity to comb through your manuscript and fix the issues that they are trained to catch and you're not. Let me give you an example. You have a manuscript that has, say, about 500 things that need to be corrected or things that need to be tuned and fixed. 300 out of those errors you as an author can easily fix, but you don't, and you turn in your manuscript, give it to your professional editor. Now they have a set amount of time to work on your manuscript, so they're going to spend time fixing those 300 mistakes and then they'll get to the other 200. Now just imagine if you had fixed all those 300 issues and they went through your manuscript fixing those 200 issues that you couldn't, and then they had time to go over your manuscript with a fine-tooth comb and go through every tiny little thing and figure out that there were 150 more things that could have been polished to make your manuscript better. Now wouldn't that be a better use of your money than fixing things that you are capable of fixing? You want your money's worth. The editors that I've worked with, they give a summary of a page and a half that overlaps with the kind of edits a developmental editor would do. If you give them the time and if you give a cleaner manuscript, they'll have that much extra time to put in the work for your manuscript. Now you'll say, Pooja, I'm not an editor. How do I self-edit? Invest some time, some resources and some money in learning how to do basic self-editing. You don't have to know the Chicago manual style to self-edit. You're not going to be replacing a professional editor, so you can relax there. What you are going to do is, as a writer and as a reader, the things that you are able to catch, you're going to find out those things while self-editing. I go through my manuscript at least 6 to 8 times before I turn it in for professional editing. Now this is not how I started. Like I said earlier, my first manuscript was not self-edited. But in the past few years, that is how many times I have self-edited after I have drafted and revised and rewrote the manuscript and before I turn it in for professional editing. Every time I start working on the self-edits, I let it sit for a couple of days before I pick it up. For each round of self-edit, I have a particular focus that I pay attention to for that round of self-editing. I don't make the changes directly on the manuscript. I use the track change feature in Microsoft Word to make all the changes. Once I've gone through the entire manuscript, I let it sit for some time and then go back to it, read through all the changes that I have marked, and with a clearer mind I'm able to see what changes I want to make and I don't want to make. I do this at least 3 to 4 times. I also do at least 2 rounds of proofreading before I send the manuscript to the professional editor. I mentioned earlier that I use Microsoft Word's track change feature. If you don't know what that is, or if you're interested in learning how to use that feature, I'll be showing that to you a little later in the video. I do self-editing using different formats. For the most part, I do it on my laptop using track change. I also listen to my manuscript using talk aloud or speak feature. I have a paid version of Dragon Speaking Naturally app that I use to listen to my manuscript, but I use that mostly in the revision stage. Once I'm closer to the end of self-edit and when I'm proofreading, I like to read and listen to my manuscript on Kindle. In the past, I have printed my manuscript and done edits on that, but I feel that does not work for me. I still do it for my short stories and personal essays and poetries, but for novels, it doesn't work for me. Once I'm done, I like to do the final proofreading on the proof copy that I get printed from Amazon. It works out cheaper for me and it's also very motivating. I have a checklist of things that I look for while self-editing. If you're interested, I have this checklist linked in the description below. So in case you want to check that out, you can download it from that link. But just to give an idea, when I'm going through my edits, my one set of focus is all about how the pacing of the story is, whether the plot is making sense, does the subplot support the main plot, are the characters cohesive, are the characters consistent, are their physical descriptions consistent throughout the book, how is the dialogue, are each character sounding different or they're all sounding the same or they're all sounding like me. I like to focus on one particular thing at a time and go through my manuscript and then again have another set of focus, like how's the motive and the theme flowing throughout the story. In the next pass, I go through scene by scene and chapter by chapter and pay special attention to how the scenes are transitioning, whether the tense that I'm using to narrate the story is consistent. That's one thing I know my story suffers with, so I pay special attention to that. Once I'm done with those edits, then I use Grammarly, ProWriting Aid and Hemingway Editor to go through the grammatical and punctuation and those kind of things. You have free versions of these tools, but I also have a paid version for Grammarly and Hemingway Editor. I run my manuscript at least 4 to 5 times through each of these editors, and I'm always surprised how much these tools catch every time. How do you self-edit? Do you have a particular thing that you pay special attention to while self-editing your manuscript? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, now I'll share my screen and show you exactly how I use Microsoft Word's track change feature to self-edit. If you already know this, I don't want to waste your time. You can skip to this timestamp where I talk about resources. When you work with a professional editor, it's most likely that they'll ask you to send your manuscript in the Word document format. This allows them to use track change feature. Now what this does is they'll make changes to the manuscript, but you have complete control. So when you go through those suggested changes, you can either accept the change if it makes sense for your story and what they're suggesting. And if you feel it's kind of changing how you want your manuscript to work, you have full liberty of not accepting those changes. So if you don't know how to use that feature, this is going to help you. So I thought I'll take you through a piece of personal essay that I had written for my newsletter subscribers. So this was the essay that I had sent to my newsletter subscribers a while back. And here is the Word document that I worked on. So how I use track change is, you open the document in Microsoft Word and you go to review. In this, you have a couple of options here. Now for editing, you'll use the option in comments and you'll use new comments, and under tracking, you'll use track change option. So we'll use these two while editing to mark all the things that we want to make a note of or things that we want to change. So for example, say I want to make a change here. I want to write myself a note, giving myself some instruction or some direction. So I'll select new comment and I'll type a comment here. For example, say I would write not clear, give more description. So now to use track change, what I'll do is first select the option track changes, and I will go, suppose I want to make a correction here. I don't want to use the word now. So I'll select the word and I'll say delete. So what it does is it strikes off the word but does not outright delete it. And I want to capitalize the word W. So I'll do that. Now suppose we come further down in the document and we want to change this word from frequently to often. So again, I'll delete the word and I'll add the word. And in a similar manner, I'll continue going through my document and making whatever changes that I feel I want to make. Once I'm done, I'll save the document. And when I come back to it, I'll go through all the notes that I've made first. And depending on what notes I've made, I'll make the corrections or make the revisions, and I'll select as resolve. Now since I'm doing this for self-editing, I will do resolve. But suppose this was a professional editor from whom you had got these changes and you wanted some clarification on this particular note that they have left you. So you will say reply and you will write down what you want to ask them or what clarification you need before you make those changes. So you'll write that down. So in this case, say suppose I'm sending it to a professional editor and they have given me this comment and I want to ask what is not clear exactly. So I'll write that. All right, and then I'll continue forward. Now if your editor gets back this document and they'll reply and they'll tell you exactly what they meant by this comment that they left, and you'll have a flow of what was suggested, what you had queries over, and all those things. Now next, suppose you've now resolved this, you've made the necessary changes, so you will just select resolve, and that's that. Now for the changes that you made, you deleted some words, you added something. So in that case, what you'll do is you'll go here and you'll say whether you want to accept it or you want to reject it. Suppose you're not clear with those particular changes, you'll go to previous or next to see what all changes they have suggested. So that's what you'll use these options for. You'll use reject for anything that you don't feel comfortable making changes with, and you'll accept for anything that you feel, yes, I need to make these changes. So suppose in this case I say I don't want to make this change, so I'm going to say reject. Now here say I want to make this. The minute you completed that particular change, it automatically went to the next change that was made. So over here, suppose say I want to make this change, so I'll say accept, and that's how you go through all the documents. Once you're done, make sure that you're saving it all along. You don't want to be in a situation where you've made all the changes and then you've not saved the documents and you lose that. So this is how I use track change and the comments feature. I have spent quite a lot of time trying to learn about editing, and I have found that once I started implementing these things in my self-editing phase, I produced a much cleaner manuscript, and when I turned it into my professional editors, I got so much more from them. And out of my experience, I know that this is one place that you should consider investing some time and money in. And if you're looking to invest in some good resources that will help you with self-edits, here are some that I have personally benefited from. The Story Grid is the first one that I'll recommend. It's one of the books that I recommended in my Books on Writing video. If you've not checked that video out, I'll leave a link to that video. When I first came across this book and went through it, it was very intimidating. There's so much in this book that you can learn, and it was quite overwhelming to feel that, oh my God, there is just so much that I can work with when it comes to editing. It took me a little time to ease in and use this book correctly. What I would suggest is just take one part and work with that in your manuscript. Don't try to do everything at one time. I really struggled with that. But this is a very, very good book. If you start incorporating a lot of these things, it's going to be a lot of help. Reedsy is another very good site. They have a lot of services for indie authors, so that's one place in general that you should check out. But they also have free workshops that you can benefit from. They had a free workshop on how to self-edit, which was really helpful for me, and a lot of what I do in my self-editing phase is influenced by what I learned in the free workshop. Jerry Jenkins has a very useful free checklist that you should check out, and so does The Right Life. Link to all these resources and the videos that I mentioned will be in the description down below. You can also download the checklist that I personally use. It's everything that I've learned from workshops and free courses from other writers and the editors that I've worked with. I hope this video was helpful and will encourage you to consider self-editing before hiring a professional editor if you don't already do that. Treat this video as a starting point in your research. There is so much to self-editing. In the next video, I talk about how to know what type of edit your work needs and why you need to hire a professional editor. If you're new to self-publishing, check out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.